Omar Bassiouny is one hell of a shrewd transactional lawyer. Frankly, when I had transactions with him at the time when I was a transactional lawyer, I was hyped, had to be on my toes, had to be very careful at everything I say because I was always had in the back of my head that he was one hell of an opponent, but it was always fun to work with him. At the end of the day, when we sealed the deal on the transaction, we used to pop the juice. So it was always fun working with him.
I understand Mr. Omar Bassiouny has been chosen as the Lawyer of the Year, and I think that is a very well-deserved recognition for all the efforts and the work him and his colleagues at the law firm of Matouk Bassiouny have been doing. I wish them every success, and I personally convey my sincere congrats to my dear colleague Mr. Omar Bassiouny for this well-deserved recognition, and I'm sure there will be more and more recognitions to come in the coming years.
I'll tell you which one are the very hot sectors, and then we can go into in the intriguing dimension. I think, as you probably know, healthcare, education, FMCG, renewables to an extent happens to be really the sector that we see most interest in. And why? Because these are interests that are fueled and stimulated by demographics. Egypt today has this crossed 101 or 110 million human beings. The economy is doing well, and I think we'll come to that subsequently. And I think these four sectors are probably the most attractive sectors that we're seeing. Now, when it comes to intriguing, and again, I think it's the regulated sectors that are the most intriguing. And let's take an example as healthcare. For example, healthcare was a very interesting sector for a lot of foreign investors, especially private equity. Because there's been so much investment in the sector, there have been some reactions within the government as to try to over-regulate the sector. And for example, today, there's been a regulation a few months ago whereby you cannot buy a single share in a hospital, diagnostic or imaging without the approval of the MOH. The MOH will not grant the approval unless there is 4 other authorities granting the approval. So intriguing becomes bureaucratic, becomes highly regulated, becomes challenging. And look, I see where the government is coming from. When they see strategic sector as healthcare, صحة المواطنين being to a large extent seeing a lot of investors, especially foreign investors, investing in it, it causes some concern. And I always tell our friends in the government, regulate, but regulate in a manner that does not kill FDI. And I think the government has done tremendous efforts putting the economy on the right track. Some of the very difficult decisions have been taken over the last 3 or 4 years in terms of oil and gas subsidies, discussions. There are discussions now today about how to rationalize the subsidy of bread. In fact, these are very, very unpopular, difficult decisions that I think are the right decision, but very difficult decision to implement. And I have to give credit to the government for doing that. Now, this said, when there's a reactive policy, and that's the problem with reactive policy versus proactive policy. A reactive policy, comes as a reaction to a certain situation, and then usually they're not well thought of. They have implication on other components of the economy, and hence, intriguing. For example, the most intriguing sector today, if you want, just as an example, is the healthcare. It is extremely difficult today to do a transaction in healthcare, whether it's hospitals, whether it's imaging, or whether it's diagnostic. So we understand where the government comes from. We speak to our friends in the government. We tell them, what we've seen in other jurisdictions, because regulation is not bad, right? But sound regulation is what we're looking for. A regulation that does not prejudice FDI, that does not prejudice Egypt's positioning as the main destination of FDI in Africa, and that does not prejudice all the good efforts that the government has done. So that would be probably the most intriguing in my view.